Hey, it's Bill. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about making trees in Blender today. I recently had a project where I had to generate a lot of trees and generate movement very quickly with a very short timeline. And Blender had solutions that I needed to actually make that happen. So I want to show you what I did and kind of how I went about doing that. Now I've got Blender open in the window. You can see that. I'm going to hit X and delete that cube. I'm going to go up to Add, and I'm going to do Curve. Now, Sapling Tree Gen is what I want, but I do want to show you if you don't have that option, go up to Edit, Preferences. You're going to go to Add-ons, and you will just search for the Sapling Generator. You can see we have Add Curve, Sapling Tree Gen right there. Mine's already on. So just go to Add Curve. Now, this is something really important. When you click Sapling Tree Generator, you want to make sure that you don't lose this window down here. You see this? It's called, it's just your window for your properties. But the thing is, once you've built the tree, if you click outside of it, it's going to go away. Now, the first few times I did this, I accidentally clicked outside the tree a few times or clicked another object, and I completely lost all my work. And I'm talking about animation too, so you need to be careful. You'll see I've got my basic tree here. It's pretty cool. Oh, yep, see, I just did it. Glad I actually got to show that to you. So yeah, Curve, Sapling Tree Gen. Here's our box. Here's where you're doing all your work. One of the coolest things they have in here is they have a preset window with a few basic presets, but it gets you pretty close to like a basic concept. So like if I want a small maple, that's my maple. And I can kind of play with a lot of different settings actually. If you go to branch radius, you can kind of set the branch size. That looks ridiculous, but this would be cool for like a video game if you had a kind of fake cartoony tree. But since I want it to be more realistic, I'm going to make it nice and thin. If you can't really get there by dragging, just click like this. You can even put in custom values. Like I feel like 0.02 might be better. Yeah, see, I like that better. Branch splitting splits the branches. Pretty simple. You can create different levels of this, different base splits. The base splits really get a little crazy, so you might want to rein it in. But that looks pretty realistic for a tree. And like I said, there are a lot of settings here I'm not going to show you how to use. I'm just giving you a basic idea of how to get in, make a tree, and get moving. I may do a more detailed video once I feel more qualified to comment on like the pruning controls. I've only used them a little bit. I don't feel like I'm an expert on those particular controls. We have branch growth. This controls how long your branches are. You can also control the trunk, but I don't believe that is here. You can set a taper on the crown. Oh yeah, root flare is another one too. You can kind of flare it out at the bottom there, make it thicker. It kind of varies between tree model to tree model what that's going to look like. There's a radius scale, which is kind of the overall radius of this thing. So like I said, a lot of different controls that you can play with. The bevel resolution, the bevel resolution is interesting if you bring it up a little bit. Not too noticeable, not right now though, but you can get some interesting results with that. So let's zoom out. Looking pretty good. In terms of the trunk growth, let me see where that is. Okay, yeah, there's the trunk length. So it's this first length value. You can see how the trunk kind of really you can go up or down on that one. There it is. So you want to get it at a place where it looks pretty decent. I'm gonna go back and actually fix the root value because I feel like the root flare, I might just take it back to 1. Looks a little goofy right now. Oh, maybe less. I guess that's fine. Okay. And then I'm going to go to leaves. Now to see the leaves, you are going to want to hit show leaves, but let's get this all set up first. Hexagonal, in this case, is a pretty good basic leaf. You can do dupla faces, dupla verts, or rectangular. You can actually set objects as your leaf, so if you made like a custom leaf object, you could set that. And now you'll see the checkbox for show leaves has been clicked, and it looks pretty good, but it's a little barren. This looks like it might be a November tree, right? So you want to populate that, but you also have to be careful because, again, 3D, the more polygons, the more things going on, the more render time. So you want to cut down on that. One easy way to get around this is increasing leaf scale. which will make those bigger, a little more on scale. Still feels like we might be a little low. And you just want to kind of play around with, like, what are these values? Maybe I will take this up to 40, see where that gets us. That's pretty darn full. That's a pretty full tree. I mean, that's a very detailed tree. Pretty awesome that we can set that up that quickly. Now, here's an interesting thing. Different ways to do wind. I might do another video on how to use bend deformers to get wind in a way that's loopable. What is very cool about this Sapling Tree Generator is that it has built-in looping. So you can actually do a seamless loop of trees. You know, if you had like something for like a story on TikTok, or you're doing something on Instagram. I mean, I know these are basic things. These aren't films or whatever, but the idea is that you could create a looping, you know, video or something that you could use behind something. You could, even if you were making like, say somebody approached you to make a video for like a lo-fi music video, you could loop it, right? A lot of times musicians will ask me about that, like how much does it cost to make a loop? And this is a really easy way to make a quick like looping animation and keep your budget low, you know, keep your cost low. So yeah, let's go here. We want to first go to armature. We want to use the armature, so we're going to do that. Click that on. Now here's where the processing starts to get a little heavy. So you got to kind of, again, think about how many moving parts you have. But once you hit armature, I would say don't go back to the other stuff. You're doing this once you've set up a tree that looks nice to you. And by the way, texturing and color and all that can all be done after the animation is set, which is one of the other really cool parts about this, is you don't have to worry about materials or textures or anything like that. You can kind of come back and do that. So, we have 2 levels. You can get a little more action if you put it up to 3, but again, be careful because the detail gets a little unruly the more you add to this tree. So think about those things when you're setting this up. Okay, so we're waiting, and now we can go to the animation section. Again, don't do this until your tree is like in a good place. Here's where we're setting up our animation with the armature, leaf animation, and fast preview. Click fast preview first. This will allow us to watch the playback of the tree kind of in real time, just to get an idea of what it's going to feel like. It's kind of a low-res render of the result, but it's more important that we see the speed and what this is going to look like. Alright, and then we want to turn on armature animation. And let's play it back real quick. So there you go, you can see some pretty basic tree leaf animation. And now what's cool is we can go down here and kind of play with this. If we want it to loop, we need to set our frames to a certain amount. So I'm going to set mine to the length of the project, which is 250, and this should create a seamless loop. Hit play, and yep, there we go. We have a looping tree animation. Pretty cool. And if you want to really get in here, you can turn up the wind gust a little bit. You can set the amplitude, frequency of the wind, the randomness of it, which is really nice. And we just did like a fall scenic thing with this recently, so it was a lot of like gusty wind and things like that. So we really wanted it to have kind of a spontaneity about it, but it had to seamlessly loop at, we set it at like 5 minutes to do a seamless loop, which was a long render, as you can imagine. It took several days to render, but worth it, you know? So yeah, now I've turned the wind up. Maybe I can turn the amplitude up to a crazy level, take it up to 3 and see what happens. That might be a little intense, but let's see what the result looks like. Yeah, you can see it's really pushing the tree over now. And it looks cool though. It looks like a really strong wind, and it's gonna kind of come back. And yeah, and you can kind of spin around this thing while it's moving. And then if you feel like that's where you want to be, if that's where you like it, your tree's in a good place. So now you can see that the tree is kind of, it's really moving, it's got a good look. We have our loop set, so let's now finalize this. And the way you do that is pretty simple. You just like click on the tree. So yeah, I mean, you can actually see this if you render it out. You can see the trunk and the branches visible again. You can see them here. So if that bothers you, you don't have to do the fast preview. You could just not select that when you create a tree, and then you'll have the trunk visible the whole time. But at this point, you can actually texture the trees. So, you know, I'm not going to show you an in-depth texturing tutorial on this because, I mean, bump maps are a whole thing. Like, bringing in a special texture is a thing. But just really quickly, you can see how easily you can get pretty good results in here, right? I mean, you can just really quickly... First, I'm just going to kind of add color. Then add color to this trunk. There's our leaves. There's our tree. Okay. So then tree materials there. And we can label these, obviously. I'll call this tree trunk. Then kind of make it a nice brownish color, not orange. But obviously, like, a tree is not going to be, you know, cranbox orange, cranbox brown or anything. And we'll want to get an actual texture in here, but for testing purposes, let's just get some stuff moving. Render that out. Yeah, so you see, pretty quick, basic tree, and there's nothing going on here in terms of texture. I mean, I haven't added any sort of bump map or custom texture. This is just using principal shaders. It's using whatever the basic sun setup is. I think it's in the middle of the tree right now, which is stupid. So let's move that real quick just so it doesn't look ridiculous, right? Yeah, there's our light. Let's just move that out a little bit and then above. You can kind of see me move it over this way. Yeah. Yeah, so that's looking a little bit better. Let's render that. Again, I'm rendering in Eevee just because it's fast. But yeah, that looks pretty good for a really quick render. I mean, that's, like I said, no texture. That's just color, and that's leaves. Now, you can go in and do that other stuff, and I would recommend looking up other tutorials on how to work with texture, work with bump maps, getting depth out of your textures. But I feel like that's a different tutorial for another day. I would love to explore more of that. If you'd like to see that, let me know. And thanks for watching this quick tutorial on how to make a tree in Blender. If you want to hit the subscribe button, the like button, that would be super helpful for helping me build my channel, which is pretty new. And yeah, if you do want to see a tree texturing tutorial, let me know, because I would totally be down to make one. I just need to get around to it. Thank you so much for watching.